just for you, I'll put it here.
You can squash in there.
Yeah. Yes. It's on already. So you can just talk. Yeah. You open it when it's ready. Open it. Fantastic. Omuri mojani wadenga. Yeah, jana wadenga bekudengi da yile ni. Yeah. I very now I say. Okay. Safe here. It's got a bit of an oval shape. Keeps running off.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here and being on time. We will resume or rather begin our program shortly, so please feel free to mingle, have a good conversation. We will begin in due course. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your patience. We can now officially begin. Now, indulge me for a moment. Picture this: a grandmother sitting beneath a mopane tree in a village in the Kunene region. As she watches her grandchildren play, a solar-powered borehole quietly pumps water nearby. Her daughter is speaking to relatives in Vindic on a cell phone. A clinic vehicle drives past, bringing medicine to the community, and around her, her grandchildren dream of becoming engineers, scientists, and entrepreneurs. It's an ordinary scene in many ways, yet it tells a remarkable story about how technology is changing lives and creating new possibilities for future generations. What she may not know is that many of the technologies shaping that future, from smartphones and electric vehicles to wind turbines and medical equipment, depend on a group of minerals called rare earth elements. What she may know, however, is something even more important, that Namibia's natural resources should create opportunities for Namibians. And that is what brings us here tonight, not simply to talk about the minerals beneath the ground, but about the possibilities above it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is G.R.E.E.M, and I have the distinct honor and privilege of being your Director of Ceremonies today for a public lecture titled Unlocking Namibia's Critical Minerals Potentials, Green Technologies Value Addition, and the Future of Rare Earth Elements. Now, to officially welcome us and to set the tone for today's engagement, it is my pleasure to invite the Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Research, Innovation and Partnerships, Professor Colin Stanley.
Director of Ceremonies, Ms. Brand, the Manager of Corporate Communications and Marketing at NAST, the Director General of the National Planning Commission, Ambassador Dr. G.R.E.E.M, the Chief Executive Officer and Founder of Umbu Capital, Mr. Vetumbwavi Mugunda, our distinguished guest speaker and a global expert in rare earth mineral processing, Mr. Nels Verban, distinguished panelists and guests, esteemed academics and researchers and colleagues, representatives of industry and government, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I thought you would be in your warm homes, but you decided to be here. So thank you from the onset. It is my distinct honor to welcome you to the Namibia University of Science and Technology for our first public lecture on unlocking Namibia's critical minerals potential, green technologies, value addition, and the future of rare earth elements. We meet at a defining moment for Namibia. Rare earth elements are no longer obscure minerals hidden beneath the ground. They are the foundation of electric vehicles, wind turbines, medical technologies, robotics, digital systems, and modern defense capabilities. The Director of Ceremonies on the preamble of this event highlighted to that. We also know that clean energy is not mineral free. It is mineral dependent. Rare earth elements are among the hidden foundations of global green energy transition. However, processing mineral resources is not enough. The real competitive advantage lies in ability to process, separate, refine them into high-value products. Often they say Rare earth minerals are not rare, but it costs the earth to dig them up. The future belongs not only to the countries that own minerals, but to those that master the knowledge, technology, and skills required to transform them. Today's topic, positioning Namibia in a global rare earth elements processing landscape, therefore challenges us to look beyond extraction and the export of unprocessed minerals. It invites us to imagine Namibia not merely as a supplier of raw minerals, but as a center for mineral beneficiation, green processing technologies, research, innovation, and industrial development. Our ambition must be clear. Namibian minerals must first create Namibian knowledge, Namibian skills, Namibian industries, and the Namibian opportunities before creating value elsewhere. This public lecture is made possible through the collaboration between the Green Rare Earth Elements and Minerals Project, led by Umbu Capital and the NAS Faculty of Engineering and the Built Environment. NAS has demonstrated its commitment to mineral beneficiation through the establishment of the Center of Excellence in Mining and Mineral Beneficiation. The center has contributed to the development of Namibia's mineral beneficiation strategy and implementation plan. It also examined the feasibility study of establishing a local glass industry and continues to undertake research in areas such as green hydrogen applications and the direct reduction of oxide minerals for green steel production. Through this, NAST is positioning itself as a leading institution in mining and mineral beneficiation research within Namibia, SADC, and the region and beyond. The G.R.E.E.M project, funded by the United Kingdom government, and we know the England team also progressed, so we are all in the celebration spirit. Supported through the United Nations Industrial Development Organization Accelerate to Demonstrate program, seeks to strengthen Namibia's rare earth value chain through research, innovation, and skills development. We appreciate Umbu's Capital's recognition of NAST as a strategic partner in this important national endeavor. This public lecture must be more than an exchange of information. It must build networks, generate ideas, and stimulate partnerships across the minerals value chain. It must help us answer a fundamental question: how can Namibia convert its mineral wealth into sustainable industrial capability and broad-based national prosperity? To our distinguished speakers that will be speaking tonight and the panelists, thank you for sharing your knowledge and experience. To our guests, I encourage you to participate actively, ask challenging questions, and contribute to this important dialogue. Let's unlock Namibia's mineral potential responsibly. Let us embrace green technologies. Let us move from extraction to transformation, from mineral resources to knowledge resources, and from potential to prosperity. Namibia first and the world next. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to NAST and thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Colin Stanley. Another round of applause for him, please. And indeed, Namibian minerals must first create Namibian opportunities. Prof, thank you so much. Now, our next speaker brings an international perspective on energy security and the global transition towards sustainable technologies. Please help me welcome Ms. Rachel Evans, the Economic Advisor and the Department of Energy, Security and Net Zero, representing the UK government.
Thank you, and hello. So yes, as said, my name's Rachel Evans and I'm an economic advisor with the UK Government's Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, and it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you to Ombu Capital and everyone else involved in organising this event, and for all you attending and participating. The topics we're discussing today are incredibly important. Climate change and nature loss are defining challenges of our generation, and action matters now more than ever, with rising geopolitical tensions, economic instability, and increasing climate impacts. And within that context, that challenging global context, the UK's commitment to international climate action remains firm. So through our latest ICF, or International Climate Finance Strategy, we will be allocating around 6 billion of climate finance from our aid budget over the next three years to support countries like Namibia. This will be alongside 6.7 billion in wider climate and nature-positive climate finance, and the ambition to mobilise billions more from the private sector. So this finance is built around 4 strategic priorities: mobilising wider finance at scale, transforming the global energy system, and supporting climate resilience and safeguarding nature. But we know that public finance alone cannot deliver the scale of change that this challenge requires. So success really depends on building partnerships, developing sustainable industries, and creating the conditions for private investment to flow. So we're also focusing on how we learn from our programmes to better understand what works, to ensure our investments continue to deliver meaningful, long-term impact, and generate the evidence needed to replicate and scale successful approaches. And all of this feels incredibly relevant to what we're here discussing today. We want to help accelerate the shift to clean energy in a way that not only reduces emissions, but also supports economic growth, creates jobs, and strengthens resilience. And as the global economy moves towards cleaner and more secure energy systems, demand for critical minerals and rare earth elements will grow rapidly. And from my short time here in Namibia, I'm quickly realising that this is a very exciting place to have this conversation. Today we heard lots from Ombu Capital and the progress they're making and the clear ambition and support in this space. And the UK is proud to support that ambition through our partnership with UNIDO and the Accelerate to Demonstrate facility that we'll hear a bit more about in a second. They're supporting practical solutions and generating valuable learning that can be replicated and scaled and built upon. So ultimately, today's discussion feels like it's about more than critical minerals. It's about how countries like Namibia can help shape the industries and supply chains of the future, and how collaboration between governments, businesses, investors, international organisations and academia can turn opportunity into lasting economic and climate benefits. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from all the rest of the speakers and learning more about the innovation and expertise in this space. So thank you again for organising, and wishing everyone a productive and engaging evening. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rachel Evans. I'm sure you could all feel her excitement, right? We are equally excited. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our program is quite packed, so I will make sure that our program moves very smoothly and we will cruise nicely, and we'll make sure that we are on time as much as possible. Now we turn our attention to the global partnership supporting innovation and demonstration in critical minerals. I now invite Mr. Peter Warren, the manager for the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, commonly referred to as UNIDO, to tell us about the Accelerate to Demonstrate A2D facility. Sir?
Thanks very much, and we're going to do a bit of a quadro presentation to keep it a bit interesting. So there'll be 4 of us presenting some slides to you. We'll try and do a bit of stand-up comedy, maybe? No, maybe not. But I just want to thank Director of Ceremonies, also Director General, the National Planning Commission, and our colleagues at Namibia University and Ombu Capital for hosting us today, but also welcoming us to your beautiful country. We've not been here long, but we've really felt that warmth, and we really looking forward to spending more time here. So just to introduce myself, Peter Warren from the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. This is the UN's specialized agency that focuses on sustainable and inclusive industrial development, supporting countries like Namibia to grow industries through green industrialization and sustainable supply chains. So there's some of the areas of focus. So we look at 3 key priorities, and those are ending hunger, climate action, and then the one that we're mainly talking about today, which is the sustainable supply chains focus. So I think I have a clicker somewhere. Oh, here we go. It's right in front of me. Yeah, I'm going to skip over that because I've covered that. But basically, the types of support that UNIDO covers and supports countries is things like through technical cooperation, policy dialogues, but also through investment infrastructure. And that latter point is what we are doing here today, and the support that we're providing to Umbo Capital with the generous support from the UK government, Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. And this is delivered through a facility that we're going to talk about in a minute. But particularly on critical minerals, this is one of the areas of focus for UNIDO. We have a global alliance for responsible and green minerals that we launched last year. We're very much hoping that Namibia considers joining this alliance, which brings together countries, industries, from the small companies to the large companies, NGOs, everyone that's involved in the supply chain, from the mine inside to refining, to processing, to the downstream recycling. It's a full value chain initiative. So we're hoping to spend more time discussing this week. And maybe just to give you a bit more context, so my team here and I are focused very much on climate innovation and how can you accelerate technologies as quickly as possible towards decarbonization and commercialization. So how can we get there as quickly as possible to grow those industries, get good quality jobs while decarbonizing those industries at the same time? So we're really focused on one part that is particularly a tricky area to unlock, and that's the demonstration phase. So we see a lot of projects that come from research and development, through universities like the one we're in now, through to pilot phase. And this is GAP, where you need to first do a large-scale demonstration project, often very capital intensive, often hard to get private financing, but it's a real core gap, and that's why we set up the Accelerate to Demonstrate facility to really unlock that and address that issue. Because we found that about 35% of emissions reductions actually need to come from technologies that are stuck at the demo phase. So there's such an important area for grant financing, for blended financing, for partners to come together to really accelerate critical minerals and other themes in this area. There are a number of others, like, for example, the World Bank has their Climate Smart Mining Initiative. There's a new initiative that's been established by the Asian Development Bank in this space. And ours is the other sort of big facility supporting this area. But I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, Rada, who's going to cover some of the work we've done on critical minerals.
Good evening, thank you. So the slide here highlights the result of the market assessment developed by the A2D facility in 2024. And actually the market assessment discussed or analyzed the nexus of 6 dimensions in developing countries, including technology, initiatives, and other national stakeholder in developing countries. So according to the market assessment, technological innovation in midstream and downstream activities in developing countries rely primarily on technologies transferred from developed countries, and local innovation is slowly emerging. The market assessment in Namibia is one of the deep dive countries that analyzed and studied in the market assessment. And as you see here on the map, that Namibia has good potential for lithium processing and recycling, and also mineral electrification and processing, extraction and processing. I will move to my colleague Lorena to present, and then I will continue.
So, this is part of the stand-up comedy. Thank you, everyone. So I'm Lorena Alberta. I'm also part of the E2D facility team. I'm very happy to be here with you and to be in your beautiful country that I hopefully get to know more in these upcoming days. So for the E2D facility, was designed exactly to bridge this gap that Peter was mentioning earlier, to bridge the gap between early pilot projects and also the demonstration phase towards commercialization of these climate innovation technologies. So the Accelerate to Demonstrate facility aims to accelerate this transition to commercialization of innovative climate solutions in developing countries by supporting these catalytic and scalable lighthouse demonstration projects. And we support 4 thematic areas. These are clean hydrogen, critical minerals, smart energy, and also industrial decarbonization. How we support projects. The E2D facility supports projects by providing grant support to demonstration projects between $1 to $5 million US. Most importantly, I have to say that E2D facility is has funding from the UK government, £65 million, and we provide these grants for 3-year projects. How do we support these projects? We open competitive call for proposals. So we had our first call for proposal in July 2024, and from that one we support our first cohort of projects, 5 projects in Namibia, Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania and Nepal as well. And we then open our second cohort of demonstration projects through our second call for proposals in 2025. And from that one, we support projects in Namibia. So this is Ombu here, Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. We also opened our third call for proposal earlier this year in April, and it was closed on the 18th of June 2026. So we will see how many projects we support from this cohort, but just to say that out of a portfolio of 9 projects, Namibia, we support 2 projects in Namibia, so this says a lot about the potential of the country, and 1 project is on critical minerals, Ombu, and then the other one in clean hydrogen. I think I will stop there and give the floor to my colleague for the next slide.
Actually, because I'm leading on critical minerals, so I'll present our supported critical mineral project in developing countries in Africa. The first project, of course, the green processing of rare earth critical mineral green project in Namibia, and the project will be presented in details today. But I would like to highlight that the E2D facility is supporting the first green rare earth elements processing plant in Namibia, and the project will use an integrated approach by using of renewable energy, and will produce valuable materials and rare earth elements that could be used in clean energy solution and green industrialization. I would like also to highlight the expected impact the project will achieve, and will reduce CO2 emissions, and will create jobs, and will also help to support the community through inclusion of women and different groups. The second project in Nigeria, led by Hinckley Waste Recycling Limited, and the project will also support Nigeria in the establishment of the first industrial-scale lithium-ion batteries by using of end-of-life batteries. So the project will produce black mass that include lithium, manganese, nickel, that required also for clean energy solution and the green industrialization. The project will support the country by formalizing the informal sector, collection sector, and will establish 20 formal collection stations in the country. So the project also will achieve impact related to climate change and reduction of CO2 emissions, creating jobs, and will support the country and will provide knowledge sharing and dissemination activities. The third project in Tanzania, led by Oasis Financial Services Limited, and the project will accelerate the commercialization of clean energy solution in transportation sector by localizing the industry in Tanzania. And the business model rely on 3 pillars. The first one, localizing the production of lithium-ion batteries, and also chassis production for 3- and 2-wheelers, the motorcycle, and also establishing swapping and electric charging station in the country. And of course, the project will support the country in their vision for on climate change related by reducing CO2 emissions, creating jobs, and also provide dissemination activities to the national stakeholder, and will also support the community surrounding the project. And I will move to the next slide, presented by my colleague.
Hi, I'm here to talk about our other project in Namibia, the beautiful country that is. The project is the Darris Green Hydrogen Village. It's the first low-carbon fertilizer plant in the Orongo region. It aims to use electricity from PV solar to create hydrogen, then hydrogen to ammonia, then ammonia to ammonium sulfate. It intends to demonstrate the production of fertilizer, not using fossil fuels, as well as reducing the reliance on imports and eventually hopefully exporting. It's also there to improve food security as well as create jobs. We will be working with them until the end of 2027, but within the 1.5 years that we've been working with them, they have reported about 25 tons of CO2 reduced per year, around 6 jobs created, 10 people trained, of which 100% were actually women. In terms of the current status of the project, they have started construction, which is really exciting, and they're also working on groundworks. But yeah, it's a quick introduction to the hydrogen project that we run in Namibia, but I'll quickly hand over to Peter.
And just to conclude, I just need the clicker. I can't even see it. It's right in front of me. Just to conclude, we have some references if you want to find out more about the Accelerate to Demonstrate facility. We have our annual reports. I think we might have run out of copies, but we did also produce some frameworks, which we have today, because a really key part of what we do with our projects is to support training on gender equality, social inclusion, and also environmental social safeguards. These are really key aspects, not just to get support from this program, but also during the implementation of the project. This is actually an important factor for us. So we actually do have some at the front if anyone would like some copies of those frameworks. But I think just in conclusion, we're supporting projects that are really having lighthouse effects in the country. So, I mean, there are many, many interesting ideas out there, right? We get lots of proposals in the cause, and they're all fantastic projects. But only if you really demonstrate what we call transformational impact and lighthouse effects, those that can be beacons for other projects to then replicate in the country and beyond. Right, and Umbo Capital is a fantastic example of this project you're going to hear more about. It's a great example of how they're going to do that with strong support coming from the Director General as well. It's shown huge amounts of support for this project to help them scale. And you can see from the investment community that this is clearly a bankable project as well. So really good case study for others to follow. So maybe we close there, but thanks very much.
As they say, teamwork makes the dream work. Thank you so much, Team UNIDO. A round of applause for them, please. Now we have a slight change in our program. I know you are looking forward to hearing Ambassador Dr. G.R.E.E.M, the Director General of the National Planning Commission, to speak to us, but he will do so in a minute. We're just going to have a slight change, like I indicated. He will come right after our keynote speaker, together with Mr. Vetumbwavi Mungunda, from Ombo Capital. I promise, I do know again, you are looking forward to hearing from the Director General, and this is not a strategy to hold you hostage. He will eventually come to the stage, so please do bear with us. Now, to help us better understand the science, geology, and market dynamics behind rare earth elements, I invite Dr. Rainer Almis, the General Manager, Exploration of Gecko Group and Vice President, Exploration at Namibia Critical Metals, to the podium. Sir?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the warm-up session, the technical warm-up session. Can I have my slides? One second, all right. So I will give a quick introduction on rare earth elements in general, some terms, some facts about them, then talk about the mineralogy of rare earth elements in the ground, which is the key element of a successful project. Only with the right mineralogy you will have an eventually economic project. Then I will continue with a quick overview on the rare earth market, prices, demand, and so on. And then I have a look at where do rare earth elements occur in Namibia and which of those occurrences become deposits. So where will it be economically mineable? So, oh, here we go. Yeah, so I wear a lot of hats, and here it is representing Namibia Critical Metals, a company which develops the Loftal heavy rare earth deposit, together with Toyota Tsusho. G.R.E.E.M with Namibia Critical Metals is a Toronto-listed company, and Gecko Exploration, a private Namibian company, from exploration down to mining, and I'm a partner in that company. Let's go. Next slide, or can I move it? Yeah? All right, good. As an introduction, in the core of the rare earth elements are the 14 lanthanides down here. Mendeleev, when he put together the periodic table, he was not happy about those elements because they didn't fit really into that otherwise aesthetic periodic table. So they sit actually behind lanthanum. And into the rare earth elements, we integrate lanthanum, we pull it down, put it in front of that row, and we pull down yttrium from position 39, put it at the end. It would actually stand here purely by its ionic radius in the range of holmium, but we put it at the end of it. And these 16 elements are the rare earth elements and nothing else. And why do we group them together? That's mainly because of their very close chemical similarities. So the atomic radii, the valency of their oxides, and so on. And so they always occur together. Which elements are not rare earth elements? So all the others, that's a quick answer. But often scandium is named as a rare earth element, but it doesn't really belong into that group. It has a completely different ionic radius. It has its own geochemical behavior. It simply never occurs together with the real rare earth elements. And then in our press or in discussions, you sometimes hear, oh, I have rare earths like lithium, cobalt, germanium, and so on. No, none of them is a rare earth. Those 16, and that's it. Then, are they rare or not? If you start on the left side, and we split those elements into two groups, the light rare earth elements, or you will hear me and Niels talk about LREE, and the heavy rare earth elements. And within those two groups, there's, by natural processes, there's no partitioning. So if you find one of those elements in a natural rock, in a mineral, then you will always have the others as well. So if you detect yttrium in your rock, you will have the high-value terbium, dysprosium in your rock, in some minerals as well. The same on the light side, but often there's a little bit of bleeding into both directions, so you can have a light rare earth element mineral, which contains a little bit of heavies, and the other way around. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Usually the ratios between those elements is also quite defined already in our solar system, because it's all stardust from other supernovas, and the ratio between those elements is always very similar. So if you find about, let's say, 1.4% yttrium, you will have 0.2% dysprosium and about 0.1% terbium in your rock, more or less. Yeah, mineralogy is king. As an exploration geologist, we usually say, oh, it's great in tonnage. In gold and copper, it's all right, but in rare earths, it's not so important. It is about the mineralogy, because most of the rare earth containing minerals are very difficult to process, very expensive to crack. Nothing is impossible, but it costs you a lot of energy, a lot of chemicals, and so most of the minerals we call refractory. You can only throw them on your waste rock dump, and you can't make money with them. The easily processable minerals are those here on top, bastnäsite, monazite on the light rare earth mineral side, the very pure rare earth carbonate and the rare earth phosphate. And then as soon as we go down to the more complex minerals, the more difficult it becomes. And difficult means at the end expensive. So silicates and oxides containing rare earth elements are usually not a rare earth ore. And so it doesn't really help if someone declares, oh, I found 4% rare earth elements in my rocks. Unless you tell me what the mineralogy is, it can be of no value. On the heavy rare earth side, there's actually only one hard rock mineral. It's called xenotime, the heavy rare earth phosphate, which can make money. Most of the heavy rare earths are generated from iron absorption clays, where they are loosely bound to minerals like kaolinite. And then there's, as I mentioned already, always a little bit of heavy rare earth elements in those minerals like monazite, sinchite, parasite. And then the second point is, in a lot of deposits, also here in Namibia, so in the area down there in the Sperrgebiet towards Aus, which we call the Sperrgebiet alkaline province, as well as in the area which we call the Damaraland province, with Okuruzo, Kameelberg, and all of those other intrusive, you often see that we have very small and locked mineral particles of these rare earth minerals. And so that would be an example here from the Okuruzo carbonatite. You see sinchite and rankenite as small white needles in a carbonate crystal. And if you look at the scale, so the biggest of those crystals is maybe 50 micrometers long. But most of them, all these little white dots there, are maybe 3-5 micrometers only. So now you have the problem, if you crush that rock coarse, which is relatively cheap, you might liberate particles of 50 micrometers. But with that, you don't recover all of those small little dotlets here. So you will have a loss of probably 50% of what you actually thought you can get out of that rock. If you crush it to fine, or mill it to fine, sorry. So if you mill it to fine, then those bigger crystals, you will overmill them, you will produce a lot of superfines, ultrafines, which you can then not extract anymore during the next concentration process, which is flotation. So again, you will have losses of 50%. So in that regard, these projects are quite difficult. Difficult in the sense of you will not gain all of the potential profit from what you have in your original maybe model, in your original financial model. So, I think the batteries are down. We need rechargeables. All right. So why do we have that rare earth hype again? And I say again, I've been around the block for some while. We had rare earth hype some 12, 14 years ago. And it always has to do with their unique magnetic, optical, chemical properties used in high tech with no substitutes. So their properties are so unique, there's no way to exchange them for something else. If you just look at the phosphorus out of the rare earth elements, lutetium will be the blue phosphor in your laptop and phones. Europium gives the red, and terbium the green. So there are some micro milligram in each phone, but it is a lot. And without that, you don't get any of those nice color displays or the LEDs for your Christmas tree. But in terms of market value, the permanent magnets are the most important. And there are probably 100 different formulas how to mix a permanent magnet for what you want to use them. But there's about a third. There's about a third of. Probably 100 different formulas how to mix a permanent magnet. There's about a third. The first advertisement of each of those projects is, we fuel the green revolution. But actually, it will be only a handful of wind turbines you can fuel with each of our projects. All right. I think I should skip the next slide. Yep, all right. I can still not move it. So the second aspect is still the supply risk for rare earths to the industries outside of China. On the mining side, a lot of mines came up already in Australia, in the US, in other countries. So it's already a bit more diversified market. But the downstream processing into the magnets is still in China's hand, and it is actually a trade war going on. And if China plays here a hard game, the non-China industry is at a risk of $6,500 billion per year. So, and it will cost only $60 billion to decouple the out of China industries from that supply from China. And US, Japan, and Australia are already on their way to build those processing plants, separation plants, and in the nearer future, that risk will be gone. Next. Look at the prices. It's a logarithmic scale. In red are the prices for the rare earth element oxides, and here highlighted are the light rare earth oxides. On the left-hand side, you see lanthanum cerium oxides. They cost about $1,000 per ton. That's about what it costs you to separate those two from neodymium, praseodymium. So you will never make money with lanthanum and cerium. That's just, and a lot of projects already think, okay, let's get a crude split and put them in bags and forget about them. So all your profit you have to make from neodymium and praseodymium. And that price is now quite stable at about $120, $130 per kilogram. And that due to the fact that the US and Japan implemented floor prices for their industries, for their mines in the US or mines controlled by their countries. So the market stabilized there, and even with all the future demand, the price might go up to $150 or $160, but not much more. So that is sorted. But then you go to the right side, to that bar which shows that that element, terbium oxide, is almost as expensive as silver at about $1 million per ton. Next slide. You see there is still a big risk because heavy rare earth elements are so rare, there are so few producers in the world that those trade restrictions from China impacted that market significantly. Terbium currently traded in the EU and US at about $5 million a ton. Yttrium went up from $40,000 to $1.2 million a ton. And that is what you have to pay if you need the yttrium for your jet engines, for the alloys, for the coatings, and so on. And definitely there must something happen. The investments are happening, and we will see, hopefully, a decrease of those prices in the near future. But if you look at it as a phosphor in your cell phone, so with it will make only a few pennies extra which you pay for your cell phone or your tablet, so that doesn't really matter. But for a jet engine, it is a significant amount. All right, let's rush through. Next, now we talk just the final geological slides. Where do we find rare earth elements in Namibia? Yes, everywhere, because they are not rare. The first thing is placer deposits. So all along the Atlantic coast, you will find rare earth elements. You go to Swakopmund, don't go on the jetty, go to the right side on the beach, you see dark red and black sand patches. That is heavy mineral sands. And in them, there's xenotime, so even heavy rare earth, and monazite. And not a bad concentration, actually. Yeah, so don't send your kids now with a colorful plastic bucket and let them dig it up. For several reasons. First of all, the entire coastline of Namibia is protected, so it's not even allowed to prospect there. And secondly, so if you borrow that colorful plastic spade and dig a little trench, you will see those patches of dark sands are very thin. So I assume the volumes are quite small. You see it's quite patchy. But it just shows where the potential is. Then regoliths we don't have, pegmatites we have thousands, and you will find rare earth elements, but they are in the wrong mineralogy, in the refractories. We have uranium deposits, and the betaphyte, the yttrium mineral, is known from all of our, not from all of them, but in the alazkite-hosted deposits, like in Rössing. Again, it's a refractory mineral. We can't really crack it for reasonable costs. And then we come to the alkaline rocks, and they are the stars for rare earth elements because they extract them from where they come from, the mantle on their way up, they concentrate them, and there you might find mineable deposits. With my prospecting dream team in Namibia, we have looked at all of the cyanides, all of the carbonatites over the last 20 years. We couldn't find anything of interest in the cyanides, but in the carbonatites. Next slide. So over the years, we discovered actually quite a lot of rare earth mineralization in the country. In several provinces. And it started more or less down in the south in that alkaline province in the Sperrgebiet and going towards Aus. So we had an exploration set up there called Swedish exploration. And while the textbooks say there are no rare earth elements in those carbonatites, we found them. Wilhelm Scharli bought the company and it's now listed as Kendrick Resources. And then we found similar mineralizations in all of those other carbonatites, also in Agate Mountain. Again, Agate Mountain is in the protected skeleton coast, so nothing to look at. But all of the others, they contain an appreciable amount of rare earth elements, often in the mineralogy which we don't like so much. So it's a lot of synchisite and pyrrhysite. So there is a problem in concentrating those minerals. So what we have seen so far, it doesn't look like that there is enough continuity of those ore bodies. But that has to be proven with extensive drill programs. Okay. Then the older carbonatites in green, they host interesting mineralization. The good old lady, Eureka, 4 to 5% total rare earth oxides in monazite. The monazite is coarse. You can produce very easily heavy rare earth concentrate. However, all of those deposits are very small. And so far, all of the above, only the two below, have not demonstrated a robust independent mineral resource estimate, which we call reasonable prospect of eventual economic extraction, or have shown positive pilot processing tests demonstrating feasibility. At the end, it's all about what is your OPEX, what is your CAPEX, and what can you get out. So, but the two below, they did, and that is Ondoto rare earth, a high-grade, an absolute superb high-grade bastosite deposit, 20% TiO, a discovery, boots on the ground, kick the right rocks, and here we found it. And then the next numbers just show you how much effort is needed to bring it forward. 600 boreholes drilled in Ondoto, 4 years of processing tests, several million US dollars spent in processing tests all over in the world to bring that forward. There's no freebie by finding a rare earth deposit. It will cost you years and lots of hundreds of millions of Namibian dollars to bring a project forward into a feasibility stage. So Ondoto is under development with our private company, quite exciting, and Loftar plays in a completely different game as one of two hard rock, heavy rare earth deposits, a xenotime deposit. And we spent 15 years on it, from our early prospecting work through to now, 400 boreholes. We have now 50 million tons of resources in the measured and indicated resource. Positive pilot scale processing test work and processing test work for more than 10 years. 10 million US dollars probably spent on that. And we are currently in the definitive feasibility study in a joint venture of our listed company, Namibia Critical Metals, with Toyota Tsusho and JOGMEC, the Japanese government. And you see, yeah, so you have to blast for bulk samples like that. So it's not cheap to explore a rare earth deposit and to make it work. And that photo on the right side shows you the product from Ondoto, a 98% clean total rare earth oxide product. Yeah, so the last slide is only about G.R.E.E.M. All right, yeah, so last few points. G.R.E.E.M is really a great project. And yeah, I also spend a lot of time in development cooperation. I think the litmus test is always, do you find co-investment from the private sector with your project? Yes, and here we have it. So this project triggered now that we will build that demo plant in Namibia. Absolutely fascinating to have that. So far from all of our projects, we exported our raw material or raw ore to Canada or Germany and so on. And Ministry of Mines was already angry with us for shipping so many containers of raw materials. But we needed that for the pilot scale test work. Now we can do it here. You save a lot on transport. We can do more tests here, more intense, more extensively, and so on. So it's a really good initiative. We as GECO will, or we co-invest already. As Namibia Critical Metals, so the other head, we also intend to co-invest or at least commercially use that plant because we need always more test work to optimize, to do variability studies and so on. Yeah, so the GECO site will ensure the auxiliary part of the plant with material handling, crushing, screening, on-site analysis. Also, the XRT sorter will be a GECO instrument. And then we go down the route, flotation, acid bake, impurity removal, crude, rare earth separation. I hope so if Niels doesn't say we can't do that. But I hope we can do it. At least get rid of cerium and lanthanum. Let's bag it there and have already a good value creation here in our deposits. All right, unique opportunity for rare earth explorers, but they must do their homework. Mineralogy, understand your deposit, and bring the right samples which should be representative. Then we can do test work. All right.
Dr. Rainer Almes, I can guarantee you I'm reliably informed that this is a public lecture series. So there will be another opportunity to continue with this. I apologize profusely. And I promise as I was standing, I was merely stretching. There was no pressure. Thank you so much for your time. We now have to move on to our next speaker who is waiting for us online and he's going to speak to us from Canada. And as I rightfully said, our keynote presentation, also focusing on the technical side of rare earth processing, our speaker is Mr. Niels Verban. He brings with him more than 25 years of experience in unlocking the potential of minerals through science, innovation, and technology. Please join me in welcoming Niels Verban, a metallurgist from Kunene Resources, to deliver today's public lecture, and he is joining us from Canada. Thank you.
Good afternoon all. Can you all hear me? Someone maybe say something? Can I just get a confirmation that you all can hear me?
Yes.
And see my slides?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Excellent. And you're seeing my slides, I can start?
Yes, you may begin. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, welcome all, and hopefully this will work. I think a little bit of difficulty seeing some of the slides earlier, but hopefully this works. Please do chime in if something isn't clear. So we've heard Rainer speak about what's in the ground, and I'm going to speak about how do we process these rare earths once they're out of the ground. So that's my background. My name is Niels Verban. I'm a VP Metallurgy for Namibia Critical Metals, but also an independent metallurgist. So I'm going to talk about how we process rare earths, and I'm also going to talk about what's our industry track record in ramping up these type of projects once they are fully tested, designed, engineered, and built. So in blue here, we've seen kind of four topics that I'd like to get into today. And the first topic here is the rare earth hydrometallurgy. So this is once the material is out of the ground, the concentrate has been produced, and now we're going to try and separate these rares. We're going to leach them and do things with them. I'm going to try and explain these technical terms in the next few slides. I'm also going to talk about the ramp-up performance of these type of plants. And I'll try and explain why I think this is so important to discuss, because I've seen this difference between the actual plant ramp-up performance versus what we think it will do. And this has significant economic implications. And I'll finish with a few key takeaways. Okay, let's get into this. So I'm going to, not to show off my resume here, but I think it's important that my perspective is clear and that you understand where I come from. So I am Dutch, apologies for the accent, but I think you've heard a few other accents already today. So I was born, raised, and trained in Delft, in the Netherlands. I have a degree in mining engineering, moved to Canada, did a master's in hydrometallurgy, and started working for a company called Lakefield Research. And so this is a commercial testing laboratory, and where, by the way, we've tested the Umberto material that Rainer spoke about and the lockdown material. But at the early part of my career, and let's see if I can get a pointer going. Here. Hold on a second. Yeah. Early in my career, I worked on nickel laterites, worked on process development around nickel, cobalt, copper, zinc, the rare earths, scandium, molybdenum, titanium, vanadium, cesium, rubidium even. We joked these were the IMs, the EMs. I learned early on in my career that I like talking about what I do, so I initiated a symposium, which is now a biannual event. We have a new event in about 3-4 weeks again in Canada. And the focus has been on rare earths. Worked on alternative feed sources, such as deep sea mining nodules, black mass. We heard this earlier during one of these other presentations. And just about 2 months ago, I resigned from SGS after about 26 years. And I joined Rainer and his team as a VP Metallurgy on the Loftal deposit. But I also have an independent consulting little company on the side. So I'm not a commissioning metallurgist. So you might ask, well, why this presentation? Well, a few reasons. There is relatively little industry experience in rare earth processing. So these type of presentations I find important, trying to explain why this is so complicated. And like I said at the kind of starting slide, I've noticed this disconnect between actual and predicted ramp-up times. So my perspective comes from designing, operating, interpreting, lab work, and pilot plans. And yeah, that is me, but quite a little while ago. So I'm a little older now. So let's get some technical terms cleared up. So rare earth speak and metallurgy speak, and I'll start with metallurgy speak, and I'm a metallurgist if you haven't clued into that yet. So I'm going to talk about, and apologies, there's quite a few technical terms within this presentation, and I'll try and explain. As a metallurgist, we talk about flow sheet, and to me this is I say a familiar term, but I understand that maybe to the audience it's not. So a flow sheet is like a recipe to process ore into saleable products. So when Rainer talks about rare earths in the ground, I want to talk about how do we extract those rare earths out of the material in the ground into something that can be sold. Comminution is crushing and grinding of rock. Beneficiation, we heard this term earlier today as well. It's the I guess the process of separating minerals. So we heard Rainer speak about minerals that contain rare earths. It's about separating those minerals, such as xenotime, basensite, monazite. I'll get into those a bit later. Those minerals that carry rare earths, and how do we separate those from minerals that do not contain the rare earths? Now, I'm a hydrometallurgist, so this is really what I'm comfortable talking about. And the hydrometallurgy is used to process concentrates, or the minerals that contain these rare earths, using watery solutions such as acids, alkaline, liquors, caustic. That's hydrometallurgy. Then you'll probably hear me speak about leaching as well. And so leaching is the science around dissolving ore or concentrates into lixiviants. So examples are really simple: dissolve sugar into water, or gold into cyanide, or copper into acid. That's all leaching. And then yes, we like our acronyms, and PLS is a pregnant leach solution. So this is, that sounds odd, but that's just how it is called. And this is a PLS, or a pregnant leach solution, is once we have leached something, be it sugar or gold or copper, or in our case, rare earths. Now I can speak get into rare earth speak now. We heard Rainer talk a little bit about lights and heavies already. So the definition, by the way, of light rare earths is not uniform. I think I use a different definition than Rainer. And you can talk to two other consultants and hear two other explanations. But the one I use, lights, is from lanthanum to samarium, or La to Sm, and heavies is from europium all the way up to lutetium, and including the terbium dysprosium that Rainer spoke about. You may hear other people talk about critical rare earths. Those are really praseodymium, neodymium, terbium, and dysprosium. These are also sometimes called the magnet rare earths, and they contain the highest value, and particularly the heavier TBDY. Rainer spoke about the pricing. I won't get into that. So just some of the acronyms. TREE is total rare earth elements. TREO, total rare earth oxide. We hear others talk about MREC. That's a mixed rare earth carbonate. And Rainer and I often are now using the term HREC, which is a heavy rare earth carbonate. Some projects, by the way, particularly in India, they produce a mixed rare earth chloride, and very confusingly, they also call it MREC. Yeah, it's not straightforward. Okay, so we have some rare earths in the ground. How do we make a magnet, right? Because that's ultimately what it is about. So I've listed here, and I won't go through everything here, but I've listed here some of the stages that are required to get into magnet making. And so we have the mining and beneficiation, making a concentrate. We use hydrometallurgy to extract the rare earths from the concentrate, remove some of the impurities like I list here, such as iron, aluminum, thorium, uranium, and ultimately to produce a mixed, purified rare earth stream. I'll talk a little bit about rare earth separation. This is where we're going to split them up into the different rare earth elements. But the challenge is that these elements are chemically very similar and they're quite difficult to separate. Then the last two steps is not my expertise, but they are part of the how do you say, the supply chain or of the steps required to get into a magnet. So first, we got to make a metal, and then we're going to mix it with the various elements to make an alloy, and ultimately magnets are produced. There are lots of individual steps included within these stages. I don't think it makes sense for me to go through it right now, but no doubt a slide that can be shared, and it's kind of available there. I think the next slide, yeah, okay, so this is in red, is my background that I'm comfortable talking about. And you'll find in the rare earth industry, I don't think you'll find anyone that is comfortable in all of these steps. So this is kind of my background and also what this presentation will mostly talk about. This is really kind of a similar slide to the previous one, but now formatted as a flow sheet, right? The recipe that I spoke about earlier. So on the left, we've got the various kind of starting materials containing rare earths. We have hard rock, lights or heavies, ionic clays, which contains most of the heavy rare earth production at the moment, particularly coming out of China. Secondary rare earths, so these are recycled rare earths. Think about permanent magnets contained in wind turbines or out of EV motors. Or PG stands for phosphogypsum. It is a waste product out of the phosphoric acid industry. And there's many other streams that contain rare earths that have been mined or processed at some other earlier stage in their lifetime, I guess. And finally, I've got another box here with ionic clays, and I'll explain why. And then on the right, we've got the products, so magnets and other rare earth products, catalysts, phosphorus, lasers, etc., etc. This kind of shows the path that a typical rare earth projects will go through. Hard rock, so think of monazite, bastnäsite, xenotime style deposits such as Lafdal and Ondoto that were mentioned will go through a upgrading plant, making a concentrated mineral containing the rare earths. They go this way. The stuff that doesn't contain rare earths will go that way into the tails and residues. The concentrate will go through hydrometallurgy, leached, purified, and ultimately recovered. and it will enter into the separation part of the flow sheet. This can be geographically a different location. Within the rare earth separation, we'll split lights versus heavies, or maybe we'll produce an NdPr stream or a lanthanum cerium stream. SEG stands for samarium, europium, gadolinium. Terbium, dysprosium is a product that the Lovedal project will produce and will be used in permanent magnets to make them tolerate the high heat cycles. Yttrium, holmium, and the real heavies here, it depends on the project. So this is a bit of a generic flow sheet. So typical rare earth deposits, again, I'm kind of posing the question here, how do we go from, say, 0.1 to 5% rare earths in the ground? How do we go to a saleable rare earth product? And the answer really is project and deposit and mineralogy specific. Many options exist at each stage of the flow sheet. So let's talk a little bit about, I'll try and give a quick review on types of deposits. So I've got them split here in lights, heavies, and then the secondary sources again, just like I did in the previous slide. And then within the lights, there's quite a few different, options or examples. I'll speak about bastnäsite, which is the primary mineral in the Ondoto deposit that Rainer spoke about. I'll also talk a little bit about monazite, which is a rare phosphate mineral. And some examples of carbonatites, which are usually lights, are listed here. So this is Mountain Pass in California. I'll have a few more, I've got a few more slides on this project, by the way. Mount Weld, this is in Australia, but processed in Malaysia. The Chinese Bayan Obo, Wichita Lake, which is in my home country, in Canada. Different mineral sands. Again, we heard Rainer speak a little bit about this. Energy fuels in the US, Hastings, and Iluka in Australia. And then the heavy rare earths. And the vast majority of current heavy rare earth, most valuable rare earths, are produced out of the Chinese clay project. This is responsible for the vast majority of the current heavy rare earth production. So these are the Chinese clay projects, but also new projects under development. Serra Verde in Brazil has been commissioning, or ramping up, I should say, for the last 2, maybe even 3 years. Eau Clara is a Chilean deposit formerly called Biolantanidos. It's another clay project. But also, so these are not really hard minerals or hard rock minerals. These are rare earths absorbed onto clays. And I'll get a bit more into this in some of the next few slides. The alkaline style deposits, and here in Canada, we've got a few, Strange Lake, Nacho Nacho. I've worked on both of these. Then some other typical heavy rare earth deposits, and I'm not a geologist, so I'm not sure if Rainer agrees, in fact, here, but the hydrothermal vein style deposits, Lovedal, Steenkampskraal, Gagara, Browns Range, which is the other xenotime style projects. I've worked on most of these projects, in fact, here, so I can say a few words on most of these. And then secondary sources, again, red mud, coal waste. We see this in the US quite a bit. Phosphogypsum, I think in South Africa, there's a large project. Various other tailings. I mean, Bayan Obo has significant heavy rare earth tails. And there's a lot of attention these days on recycled permanent magnets out of the wind turbine, EV motor style industry. So the next few slides, I'm going to kind of get into details I'll have and talk about a few examples in a bit more detail. So let's talk with lights. And this is a bastnäsite example. It's Mountain Pass. It's a project I've been involved in myself in a past life. And this is the mineral formula or chemical formula for bastnäsite. So it's lanthanum, cerium, and other lights, by the way. And we call it a fluorocarbonate mineral. This is the F for fluoride, and this is the carbonate. So this is operated by MP Materials, and the mine is in California. It's about 50 minutes out of Las Vegas. And here's an aerial picture. Here's the pit, and I think the highway that goes from Las Vegas to San Francisco or LA is kind of located here. There's about a kilometer in between the highway and the pit. This is an old project. I think it started as a gold mine, by the way. It went through different names. It's kind of listed here, but the interesting bits are kind of here at the bottom here. In 2017, MP Materials took over the project after it went through bankruptcy. They restarted mining. They processed a concentrate which was shipped directly to China. And in the 2020s, test work and engineering started to process the concentrate in country in the US, in fact, on site right there. And in 2023, they produced their first neodymium praseodymium oxide through their separation plant. And I was fortunate enough to be somewhat involved in this. Yes, I stole this off their website or one of their presentations. So I didn't draw this up myself, but in fact, it's actually almost a copy of the generic flow sheet that I showed a few slides back. So here we've got kind of the stage one. This is mining, milling, and flotation, making a concentrate. So here's the ore, it's crushed, ground. Flotation is I noticed Rainer also used the term. It's a technique to separate minerals. And floating minerals, in fact, shown here by the little cloud, I guess. It contains the minerals, it's filtered, and then this concentrate is now leached through a process developed by the Mountain Pass team. Leached, filtered, purified, kind of goes on, and ultimately we've got separated rare earth products. And this plant is now operating, and I'll have more words about this plant probably about 10-15 minutes or so. And then this is really the bottom part of the overall how do you say, path to make a magnet. And as you can hear me stutter here, not an area that I'm very familiar with, but here's where the oxide is reduced to metals. Hydrogen decrepitation means that it provides the ability to grind the material into a small powder. That small powder gets pressed, and then after it's been magnetized, it's sintered, it's machined, plated, and ultimately now we have a magnet. All in an effort, and I'm not trying to explain all of this, but all in an effort to show that the path from an ore to a final rare earth product, it goes through a lot of steps. It's not easy, this. Okay, switching to another project. Still, I'm on a light rare earth project here. So this is a monazite. So again, it's a light rare earth mineral. So instead of a carbonate now, we've got a phosphate. This PO4 stands for phosphate. It's the Mount Weld deposit in Australia, but the picture I'm showing here is of Malaysia. So the concentrate that's produced in Australia is shipped to Malaysia and inland in Australia to Kalgoorlie. Flow sheet is described here. So floated in Australia, concentrated in Malaysia or Kalgoorlie, and in Kalgoorlie it is it goes through a chemical process that we call acid bake. And that gets done in these massive rotary kilns, basically a large cylinder, and I think this is about a 6-meter diameter kiln. I forget how long it is, but I thought it was around 60 meters or so. It's showing 2 right now. There's actually 4 on site. This photo is probably a bit dated by now. There are 4. And then on Malaysia, they take the MREC material out of Kalgoorlie. It's also leached. Impurities are removed, and it goes through a solvent extraction flow sheet. I'll explain a bit later. Ultimately, to produce NdPr oxide. Okay, there are other light rare earth projects, many light rare earth projects, but I thought it was nice to just throw and highlight 2 Namibian examples that I've been involved in. And by the way, that's my hand, so just to show that I have visited your beautiful country. And it's often talked about pink rock. Well, here it is. And I think this is me with the hat there. And Rainer, I think this is you right there next to me. And I had the privilege of being shown around at the Ondoto site a few years back. I have some involvement with Camilleberg as well. It is a light rare earth deposit carried by ensilite and bastnäsite, and that project carries some niobium and strontium credits as well. Okay, moving on to heavy rare earth projects now, and I'm going to start with clay projects and the how do you say the flow sheets and the ways how rare earths are recovered are quite different, but I think it's important just to spend a few minutes on this topic because this is how the majority of heavy rare earths are produced. So it's important that we talk a little bit about this. These are low grades. Clay projects are really low grade, from I don't know, typical 0.05 to around 0.4%. So if you put this in relation to, for example, the Ondoto deposit at 20%, or say Mountain Pass that I spoke about just now, it's about 5 or 8%. This is really low grade. So these are different types of projects. We don't speak about clear mineralogy anymore. Instead, these rare earth elements, they are absorbed onto the clay minerals, such as kaolin and smectites and various other minerals. So they're not recovered through leaching and other chemical techniques. They are actually recovered through what we call desorption. And what's really important, and why I put it in red, is that any rare earths present in, I don't know, in some of these rare minerals, bastnäsite, xenotime, monazite, we cannot recover that through a desorption process. We only get the adsorbable or desorbable rare earth units. So when you are evaluating as a project developer a new deposit, it's really important that we look at the percent desorbable rare earth units. So a typical assay coming out of a lab that looks at total rare earth units doesn't explain the full story. We really have to get into percent desorbable. So desorption, what is this? Well, it's an ion exchange process, and you can do this with seawater, like sodium chloride, or more typically ammonium sulfate. And other projects or other researchers have looked into using magnesium sulfate. And here are a few examples of projects outside of China: Serra Verde in Brazil, Tantalans in Madagascar, Makutu in, I thought it was Tanzania, but I might be wrong. I have worked on this, I should know this. Al Clara in Chile, and there's other examples, quite a few in Australia, in fact. So from a processing point of view, it's actually pretty simple. We desorb the rare earths, we purify it just a little bit. There's only kind of iron and aluminum that we remove, and we immediately precipitate this as a mixed rare earth carbonate. Hear those acronyms again. And the challenges are more about the logistics of moving large quantities of ore, and large quantities of ore because it's such so low-grade material. And one of the key questions that a hydrometallurgist like myself will need to answer if I would get involved in such a project is, are we going to do heap leaching, agitated leaching, or in situ leaching? And I realize I'm going to get into the kind of the nitty-gritty here. But heap leaching, it's probably familiar in Namibia and South Africa with the gold projects, particularly in South Africa. Agitated is large tanks, but because we've got large quantities of ore due to the low grade, we'll have to deal with large filtration equipment. So that's the challenge there. And in situ means that we leave the material in the ground, but we drill boreholes and drip acid or lixiviant like this into the ground. So there's obvious environmental concerns. I think the next few slides is going to talk about in situ leaching. And so here's a slide that I stole from my good friend John Good, with his permission. And this shows a kind of a typical little hill. The next slide has a picture of it, so you can picture it a little bit better. And here are the kind of the drill holes that I spoke about, where they'll inject the eluent or lixiviant, the sodium chloride or the ammonium sulfide, and these are the recovery tunnels where we pick up, here's that acronym again, Praktyn lead solution, and this is what it looks like a photograph. These are these channels where we collect the pregnant leach solution. These are the irrigation piping systems. Kind of a close-up is shown here. So material or lixiviant kind of trickles down this little hill and it's collected there. And from that liquor on, we will recover the rare earths. This is the El Clara pilot plant, which they ran just a few years ago. Okay, and obviously I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Loftal. And I've been involved with Loftal for probably about 4 or 5 years, initially within SGS, my old employer, but now I've decided to join Rainer and the team. So this is the xenotime mineral. Here's a formula for it, so it's an yttrium phosphate, and the terbium and dysprosium report within this mineral as well. Location shown there. And again, like Rainer said, it's one of the 2 global primary xenotime projects under development in the world. And when SGS got involved, and this is through my own involvement, we converted this from a different type of flow sheet to what we call an acid-bake flow sheet. This kind of shows the SGS engagement, where when this came in the door, we looked at they, I should say now, they reviewed, but I was involved, the past work. We converted this from a caustic or an alkaline leach circuit to an acid-style flow sheet. Lots of bench work conducted, both on the flotation and hydromet. A small flotation pilot plant was run in 2023. Lots of optimization work done kind of in the last few years. Then a pre-feasibility study was published by SGS Bateman at the start of this year. And acid baking, just like the Linus project in Malaysia, goes through a rotary kiln. So this is SGS's little pilot rotary kiln, and this is the Loftal material that kind of rolls through the kiln. And this little thingy here is a thermocouple. This unit is only about 6-inch diameter, so it looks bigger than what it is. And the flow sheet is shown here. I don't think it makes sense for me to go through it all the way, but this is the flotation concentrate, and we mix this with acid. It gets baked and water leached. We remove impurities such as iron and aluminum here. A primary rare earth precipitate is made here. We call it an MREC, and then we process this MREC further and ultimately make a light rare earth carbonate and a heavy rare earth carbonate, so an LREC and an HREC. And I think that, yeah, these green arrows kind of show the path that follow rare earths. And during that work that we did at SGS in Canada, we produced a high purity MREC. That's really this little box here. And here's a picture of that material. It was pretty high grade stuff, 20% yttrium, probably about 4% combined terbium and dysprosium, and really very low levels of uranium and thorium. So this is a good material. And the current work is focusing on making this separation. That's what we're working on. Okay, so now I've kind of spoke about rare earth metallurgy, and I'm going to switch topics here. So I'm going to switch from metallurgy and flow sheets to actual plant operation. I really think this is an important part. It's probably about half my presentation is about this. So besides the mountain pass and Linus operation, there's really very limited non-Chinese experience and expertise available. So this makes benchmarking when designing these plants pretty difficult. Yet the rare earth industry is racing towards on or near shoring of supply chains. So this experience is really lacking at this moment, and it's somewhat hindering us. Now, other critical mineral projects, be it cobalt, nickel, or lithium, follow a similar pattern here. So my background, particularly still with SGS, was an interest in the industry track record in commissioning and ramping up these critical mineral processing plants. So why do I think ramping up, or the term, is so important? Think about this. A plant at 50% design capacity, after say 3 or 4 years, is only generating 50% of its projected revenue. So probably your financial model is completely out the window. you're likely belly up, in fact, if that really happens. And during this time, you're probably incurring 100% of your project cost. So it's really challenging. So this is why ramp up is so important. And I think this message is explained. So on slide 2, I said that I noticed a disconnect between actual and predicted ramp up times. Let's do a little bit of a deep dive here. So posing the question here, are these type of ramp up assumptions a bit too optimistic? So let's take a look at actual versus predicted ramp up performance. So this has been a bit of a hobby of mine over the last 2 to 3 years. I'm just getting a call here. Not sure this is important. Okay, it was someone from the Gecko team. Okay, better to text me, Mike, if you are listening. Text me. Okay, and I'll just summarize this out of the over the last 2 to 3 years. Apologies. Okay, got the message. Thank you. Okay, over the last 2 to 3 years, I looked at operating and predicted plans. So these are in the feasibility studies. And there, out of the operating plans, the vast majority did not reach design capacity. Yet in these studies, we're saying that the majority reached design capacity in 24 months, 2 years, right? So there's a clear disconnect here. Now, when we talk about ramp up, we've got to talk about Mr. McNulty is an American engineer, and he plotted time, years since commissioning versus design capacity. And so here's a curve, the green curve here, that shows that he calls this as a series 1, that in 1 year this plant reached design capacity, but conversely in so he identified these 5 categories, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for example, a series 5 is a plant that was often complex new metallurgy and did not reach design capacity even after 4 years, only at 40%. And the series 1, the green line here, very mature technology, usually good understanding of the feed and extensive piloting work. So an extended ramp up, additional CapEx required to fix issues, high operating costs, and delayed revenues. Okay, so this is all based on all traditional commodities, but how about rare earths? That's what we want to talk about now. So I've done this whole analysis. Don't look at this. Don't try and read this table. It's really just to show you that I've done the work and looked at rare earth projects, vanadium projects, all critical mineral projects. Again, the slide that can be made available. I'm not trying asking you to look at these graphs, but it's really just to show you that I've done the work. Not trying to pass judgment here on these projects, but the objective is to show the current track record of hydrometallurgical plants, and rare earths are hydrometallurgical plants, and contrast it with what we, the industry, indicate in our pre-feasibility study documents. So here, a few interesting slides. This is Mountain Pass, the plant in California, and it's this is the last data point, first quarter of this year, and we're still about 2.5. Well, it's about 2.5 to 3 years in, and we're only at 70%. This is a problem. It's the rare earth plant out of Mount Weld, the other major non-Chinese rare earth plant. This plant started, I believe, in 2013. And after 4 or 5 years, it was only at 60%. So the message here is this is not easy to do. I'm going to switch a few slides and just kind of give you the summary here. And so this is the table of all of the kind of the projects I looked at, and what you'll see is that the majority did not reach design capacity. This is the message here. So this is difficult, and we need to do our homework in terms of engineering studies, the right commissioning team, the right test work, all of that. I'll switch these two as well. But I will say that many of these plants struggled. They struggled with material handling. So here's this is in fact the one of the projects I was involved in, and this is a rotary kiln that's completely plugged up. That we don't want to see. Instead, we'd like to see this one, which is a North American rare earth project. This is another Canadian rare earth deposit. And by the way, this is the Lovedout deposit. That's how we'd like to see the material flow through a kiln. So material handling is important. Now, I know I'm asked here to wrap up. Got many text messages here, so I just need a few minutes here because this part is important. And this is the studies where we predict our ramp-up times in pre-feasibility and full feasibility studies. So here too, I looked at about 19 projects, they're all recent, from 2020 and onwards. And let's focus just on the rare earth project. I looked at a few others as well, right? I looked at lithium, nickel, cobalt, etc. But I'll just talk about the rare earth projects. So these are projects that have not been built yet. They are in the feasibility stage. Not trying you to get to read this particular table is not the point, but I will highlight a few of the projects here where they've indicated a ramp-up time of less than 1 year. It is incredibly unrealistic. It will not happen. I know it will not happen. So focusing on the rare earth projects that I looked at, out of the 6 projects that I examined, only one was a Series 2. And the Series 2, just to, because I didn't spend much time on that, the Series 2 means that plant will require about 2 years to ramp up. These projects here, the 5 that thought they were a Series 1, they are thinking that they will be ramped up at 100% design capacity in 1 to 2 years. I know that will not happen. Just coincidentally, this particular project, the only one at the Series 2, is the Lovedout project. This is one of the reasons why I was happy to join this project, in fact. So, are we too optimistic? No, I'd say yes. 5 out of the 6 rare earth projects assumed a ramp up of 12 months or less. I am pretty sure it will not happen. Some projects really missed the mark. A ramp up of a complex hydrometallurgical operation in 3 to 4 months is not realistic. Okay, so there's this disconnect that I've spoken about, and yes, we are too optimistic with some commodities, and yes, rare earths is one of those commodities. I'll switch that and I'll go to my last slide here, and just a few points I want to make here. Almost all critical mineral projects use hydrometallurgy. This is not easy stuff, and so rare earth projects are part of this. We use hydrometallurgy to extract rare earths from ores or concentrates to make a final product. But there's a bit of a disconnect between the actual and predicted ramp-up times. So too optimistic? Yeah, I think so. Certainly for rare earths, possibly not for all other commodities, but I did not have much time to get to explain this particular point. Carefully developed projects, they can ramp up quickly, provided we do our homework. And that's what we're doing now. For example, with Lovedout right now, we are going through, or we are planning for large pilot plant work and engineering studies. Namibia holds several unique rare earth deposits, several under development. There are great opportunities here. And that, I think, with that, I will leave it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Niels. Now, when we started
PhD, yeah, thank you.
Now, when we started advertising this public lecture, I must say the level of interest was quite remarkable, and I'm sure you can see why. A round of applause for him, please. I must acknowledge the people that are watching online. We welcome you. Thank you so much for tuning in. And also the people that are just really in the room. You're such a lovely audience. And a round of applause for yourselves. Now, Ombu means water fountain in the Oshirero language. And like a fountain, Ombu Capital aspires to be the reservoir of hope, longevity, and renewal. We now invite Mr. Vetumboavi Mungunda, the founder of Ombu Capital, to introduce the Green Rare Earth Elements and Minerals Project, also simply known as G.R.E.E.M. Sir?
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremony, and also gratitude for the attendance by the Director General, Ambassador, and I also would like to just once more thank the colleagues from UNITO and also from the UK government for joining us today, and to everyone who's here today. And then also would like to thank our colleagues and partners from G.R.E.E.M and the Ondoto Rare Earth Group for joining us in this great partnership that we believe will add significant value to Namibia, to its people, and also to the knowledge of, I think, this complex critical rare earth elements question. I thought I came here to understand, but I think after the presentations by Dr. Reiner and Niels Verban, I think I've just now understood how and why this is so complex. So thank you very much. So if I may, I just want to, I know that we really, we need to ramp up, but I just want to maybe just provide a bit of background about the G.R.E.E.M project. G.R.E.E.M stands for Green Rare Earth Elements and Minerals, and we want to do two things. I think the context was also provided in terms of the supply security, and especially for the rare earth elements of neodymium and praseodymium, which are very, very important for the clean energy transition. And with over 80 to 90% of their processing happening in one country. So I think it's quite a challenge. And these are needed for EV motors as we had earlier, as well as wind turbines and many of the new technologies that are needed. The second one is also the question that, and I think we've heard about that, the developing country exclusion. Africa does have deposits, but we miss the value addition step, and obviously also then we miss the jobs, the revenue, and the strategic leverage that come with that. The other key, I think, imperative as well is, and Peter spoke to this, in terms of the SDGs, SDGs 9, 13, and 5, which require different models. And these models really talks to the need for anchoring green technologies in the processing and in the industrialization processes going forward. And then also the need for in-country value addition, because that's what creates jobs and that's also what creates value. And then obviously it should, if we can have this, we'll be able to have equitable benefit sharing. The critical minerals, I think, as we were explained, is, you know, there are many, and I'm sure the students of science that are here today were kind of following the processes. Some of us that are not students of science we're being excluded, but I think the critical minerals are many and they are varied, but for purposes of our project, we're looking at the rare earth elements, and particularly the rare earth elements of, you know, the NdPr, which was also explained. And I think one of the key things for us from a green perspective is that, you know, there are many large deposits, as we've had, with advanced projects requiring or needing to come on stream. Currently, also from a policy perspective, there is a moratorium on the exporting of raw minerals. So it is imperative then that beneficiation plans are established in a country. So that's quite critical. And I think also the projects that are out there in Namibia, across Africa, is there are many deposits, as you can see, across the sub-region. And you will see some of those have already been confirmed from a geological perspective. but others are also still under exploration. So there is, I think, as we've heard from Rainer, is that there is a regional cluster already of deposits. And then when we maybe get to Ontoto, we've heard quite a lot about that. And I just want to see if you can see where Ontoto is. Maybe just in terms of the rare earth projects that are across Namibia, you will see, as Rainer said, they are mostly on the coastal side of the country. From the south, all the way through the center, and then to the north. And Ontoto is that number one on the, sorry, it's not showing. Is one there, and that's in the Kunene region, just about 30 or 20 kilometers south of the Kunene River. I think those from the Kunene region will maybe, or those that know the place called Swartboys Drift, or also referred to as Oshimuhaka. So it is about 30 kilometers from that. But this is where the G.R.E.E.M project will be established. And we are really particularly pleased with that because, firstly, the Kunene region is one of the regions in Namibia that is underdeveloped. And secondly, also, if you look at the northern part of the Kunene region, we always hear about this, that there are many mineral deposits there, but none of these deposits have really been activated. So we hope and we believe that if this project comes off, it will be able to ignite an ecosystem of further beneficiation of a number of these deposits so that they can come on stream, so that they can create economic value and then improve livelihoods. I think in terms of the G.R.E.E.M project so firstly, we did hear that obviously, we saw the lecture on the various processes and the processing and all of that. But what we are looking at is, in terms of the various options, is that option 3 as a start to create a concentrate of 65% total rare earth oxide with fertilizer as a byproduct. And obviously, we are also looking at options, and I think part of some of the opportunities for downstream further investments is to maybe look at, with time, and look at options to increase that to, for example, option 2, where, we can get the concentrates to like 98% also with fertilizer as well. When it was presented here, I think in terms of the opportunity for fertilizer, and especially these that will be green fertilizer, will be able to help significantly for, in terms of the food security for our country, and also import substitutions, and maybe later on exports as well. The project will, when we actually started with the process, we were looking at a 300-ton CO2 equivalent reduction per month. But with the review of the processes, we've actually now been able to increase that to 355 tons of CO2 equivalent reduction. The project, when we start as a pilot, is the processing part of the G.R.E.E.M project is a $8.5 million US dollars, say about 150 Namibian dollars. But the overall investments, including the up and the downstream, is close to a 14 million US dollars, so about a 250 million Namibian dollars. And I think in the context of the Kunene region in particular, this is a huge plus. And also, given that it is a demonstration, we really believe that we'll be able to catalyze further investments across the region, but also further investments in terms of industrialization of our country, as well as the use of green technologies in our industries. So as I said, the CO2 avoidance of 350 per month, and that really includes making sure that we use as much as possible of renewable energy systems, hydrometallurgical processes that are clean in terms of all the processes. And then obviously one of the key things is to also make sure that there is independent verification of this type of data that we are working on. The other one is that we did here, and I really believe that in terms of the integration of green technologies in a processing plant for processing rare earth elements will be amongst the first in sub-Saharan Africa. And we really are keen to get this across the line as soon as possible so that we anchor green technologies in our industries going forward. The other key thing as well is that we are in the process and we will be doing a macroeconomic impact assessment of not only this project, but also if all the projects of rare earth elements in Namibia were to come off stream, what will be the impact in terms of our economy? What will be the impact in terms of social progress? What will be the impact in terms of also environmental sustainability? So we are looking at completing this within the next 3 months. And then also there is a commitment to also undertake a gender equality and social inclusiveness assessment, not only for this project, but also for the industry, and then looking at ways of how this can be mainstream into our industries and also across our country as well. And that is really looking at how do we ensure gender equality through these projects in terms of training, in terms of opportunities, in terms of exposure, but also how do we ensure social inclusiveness in terms of marginalized communities and people that are kind of excluded. How do we include them, not only in this project, but also across the industry as well? So how is this a lighthouse effect that will be coming from the project? First of all, as we've heard, a lot of the technologies that we'll be using will be applicable to most of the deposits in Namibia. So then, but when these technologies are demonstrated, they will be replicable across a lot of the other deposits in the country. The second one is, obviously also I think there is a need to make sure that there is commercial sustainability, and we were able to prove that it is commercially viable to do this. So we really believe that the support that has come from the UNITO grant, the A2D grant, has helped us to take a step forward, which we believe will be able to demonstrate the bankable economics. And I already believe that also the fact that the project has already been able to crowd in private capital from G.R.E.E.M also proves that it is possible to mainstream the commercial viability of a number of these projects. And then obviously, I think the off-takers, we know that there is a concentration of the supply, and we believe that there would be, especially from a green perspective, there is opportunity for a number of other markets, particularly from Europe, the US, to have an interest in the products coming out of these type of projects, especially given that these projects emphasize low carbon, emphasize green processing, but also emphasize gender equality, social inclusiveness, and then an absolute commitment to environmental protection. So we believe that doing this, not only for these projects, but also for all our other projects, will be able to attract the right off-takers for a sustainable industry going forward. And then the last one also, why we believe this is important, is obviously And this is one of many that will happen, is the knowledge and the capacity transfer. We are very pleased with the partnership that we have with NAST, and we believe it is important that the little knowledge that is available in respect of this industry, in respect of these technologies, this is shared with as many people as possible. We are looking at, amongst others, knowledge products being published. We are looking at dedicated training programs, capacity building and knowledge dissemination activities. But also and I think, the conversations that we've had with the professors is also to, what are the learnings that can be fused into the curriculum development at the university, but also how can the university also help us in terms of the training programs for including vocational people as well. So we really believe that this will be able to help us to get there. So I think in conclusion, as we know that Africa does have the ore, Namibia has the policy framework Director General, and we are really pleased with that. And G.R.E.E.M, in partnership with the support of all our partners, should be able to provide the demonstration. And A2D facility from UNITO with the support of the UK government, it has proven to be the de-risking instrument that will make this demonstration investable. And we also believe that it is important that we do crowd in further private capital, and we also bring in more support. So, and also I think the last point is that the blueprint of what we have should be replicable to other deposits, not only in Namibia, but also across the region as well. So we really look forward to rolling out this project, and it is not a question of if, it is actually a question of not only when, but it's actually already happening. And we look forward to the launch, which the date, Director General, the engineers will not provide us yet. Thank you very much.
Are you inspired or are you inspired? Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your insights and really unpacking this project for us, and particularly allowing us to tap into your Ombu fountain of wisdom. Thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we swiftly move on with our program. We are still going to have more insightful conversations. The panel discussion is still coming up, so I'm going to need you to really hang tight and hang in there. And also the people at home have already eaten, so you might as well stay around for the refreshments and network. Now, the question before us is not only whether Namibia has mineral potential, but how we transform that potential into meaningful economic opportunities. To share perspectives on Namibia's green industrialization agenda, pathways for value addition and capability building for sustainable industrial growth, please help me welcome Ambassador Dr. G.R.E.E.M, the Director General of the National Planning Commission. Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Director of Proceedings. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in view of the lateness of the hour, let me say all protocol observed. Now, Namibia has committed itself to a green industrialization. And green industrialization is part of the broader industrialization of the country. We have been talking about value addition, and sometimes I mention that when I studied economics 50 years ago, we were talking about value addition and economic diversification. And 50 years later, we're still talking about the same thing. The question is, what is it that we didn't do? And I had both the director of proceedings and the professor talking about Namibia's mineral to benefit Namibians. But is that happening? Yes, we say that is the challenge before us, is to make sure that these resources benefit Namibians. And we have to be deliberate about that. Now, if you look at the traditional sectors, which is mining, agriculture, and so on, but mining in particular, we are dealing with companies that have hundreds of years of experience in extraction. And then we tell them, please add value. You go to De Beers, they know how to take the diamonds out of the ground. They don't know how to make diamond rings and diamond necklaces. Somebody else has to do that. And that's where the value chain becomes important. But then we are at the end of the value, the beginning, if you want, of the value chain of producing raw materials. And that is exactly what we want to move away from. Now, in the context of today's discussion, we have committed ourselves through our National Development Plan to green industrialization. And the issue of green industrialization has been linked to decarbonization. And in the debate on climate change, sometimes when the developed countries tell us to go for green technology, which is more expensive, as we have been told, we say when you are industrializing, you use the other technology. Now when it's at our time, you tell us to use a green technology, which is more expensive. But yes, it is for our benefit. Therefore, we have created a Green Industries Council that look at green industrialization as an agenda. And I happen to have the privilege of being chairing that Green Industries Council. Now, the green industrialization strategy is based primarily on two, so far, on two commodities. One is, of course, is the green hydrogen that we have been talking about. And green hydrogen is known in the policy and the initiatives. There are various projects on the green hydrogen, including the ones producing green ammonia. And the second aspect is the rare earth minerals. Now, what can we learn from these two experiences? In the space of green hydrogen, we realize that the cost of production is higher than what the market is prepared to pay. And I heard about some countries providing floor prices, which is a form of subsidy. We are talking about contract for differences, where importing countries are subsidizing the product. And over time, to pay back the industry, or the industry to pay back government through those subsidies. Now, green industry is complex, and it requires a deliberate application of science and technology to industry. You cannot do it through trial and errors, but you have to be deliberate in terms of application of science and technology, in terms of skills development. And I think today's presentation bear witness to that. So where do we move in terms of this green industry? First of all, we said that, we had the wrong start in terms of our export of raw material and the kind of pattern of production we had. And we say that The green industrialization is a new frontier of economic development. It's a new opportunity, and therefore we have to start on it in the correct way. A correct way is not to allow the export of raw materials. And somebody said the ministry was angry when this rare earth was being shipped out of the country, and legitimately so, but I suppose it was for a good reason. And today, we are talking about value addition. Now, the two projects, the Lovedale and Nondoto, are very exciting to us because they start on the right track. In fact, while we have policies in terms of value addition, these projects are starting now with piloting processing plants. And in fact, that is what I call the right start. And therefore, the UK UNIDO support to Ndoto deserve a positive welcome. But we also know that the success of this project will depend on many factors. And therefore, the question of partnership becomes important, partnership between the public and the private sector, partnership between academia and industry, that we also learn about it. And of course, at the end of the day, is a value addition. Now, processing raw materials and shipping it out is also what one wants to avoid. It's a question of, it's like our uranium powering nuclear plants around the world when we don't have a nuclear plant ourselves. And these new rare earth materials, are they not going to be, again, products that we are going to add value to it to a certain stage and then still ship it out to fuel, again, develop other industries? And that is really the challenge for us as government and, of course, for the private sector, that it's not only a question of first stage or level of processing, but also of using it in the development of our industries. Of course, some may say it's unrealistic, depending on what kind of industry we are developing, but I think we are allowed to dream and dream big. So I would like to assure both the Ombu and Lovedale projects of the government of Namibia's total support. We'll do everything within our power to unlock any bottlenecks that may exist. I know that there will be an issue of infrastructure to access some of these localities, and that is the role that we can play to facilitate. We are equally excited. We're equally excited about the location of these projects. And I think Mr. Mugunda referred to Kunene as one of those regions. And the policy of government is to take special initiatives to bring those regions that are backward at par with the rest of the country. And this project will then become a catalyst for further investment, but also for job creation within that region. And therefore, it is not just a commercial, but it's also a social project. And that goes also for the same with the Lovedale project. Also, in terms of its location, it is an interesting coincidence that they are located in areas that need special attention. So with these really few remarks, we are ready to partner with you, with the private sector, to work with you, and to make sure that these projects do become a success. And I thank you.
As you have heard for yourself, the support is there. Ambassador, we thank you once again for your insights and for your time. Thank you. A round of applause for him, please. Now, this ushers us into the next segment of our public lecture tonight. It is time for the panelists to come to stage and to have a discussion really centered on a question that also directly links to what the ambassador spoke about earlier. What role can Namibia really realistically play in rare earth elements processing? But for this segment, I'm going to hand over to the mic to none other than Mr. Simon Hengwa. He is the technical director of the G.R.E.E.M project and is going to take us through this part of the program. Sir?
Okay, as they are preparing the stage, good evening to everyone. I will stand by the protocol as already established. My name is Simon Hengwa. I stand today as Technical Director for the G.R.E.E.M project, working with OMBU. And I would like to call to the stage my panelists today, and we'll introduce them as soon as they get on stage. Prof. Godfrey Zinomwa from NUST. Madam Foibe Wahengo, also from NUST. I'll call to the stage Mr. Mungunda from OMBU. UNIDO's manager for the A2D facility, Peter Warren, followed by Ghada Ahmad, the project coordinator for the critical minerals thematic area. If you can please take a seat closest to me in the order that I called you, so that we make it easier. All right, good evening again. We are closing this very interesting lecture today with a good discussion. I think you've really received good education today. Normally, those of us that went to universities, you go through a lecture and there's an examination taking place where you have to answer some questions for you to progress. So today, this is a public lecture. There's a series of this coming along the project pipeline, where we really disseminate more information as we actually gather more information from the demonstration project that Mr. Mungunda spoke about today. So to help us really unpack the question in the room today is, what can Namibia realistically do? What kind of pathways can we really sort of embark on to make sure that this is a reality? So we've heard about how complex the deposits are. We've heard about how complex the processing realm is. We've heard about the support from the Director General. Mr. Mungunda has put in the room the ambition that the G.R.E.E.M project has actually taken upon themselves. Even knowing how complicated it can be, how complex it is, with the right support, with the right makeup, we are here today. And I think to unpack that, I will pose a few questions to the panelists, and basically they will try and deliberate. And then I will leave a chance later on, if time permits, maybe for the audience to pose questions to the panelists today. Otherwise, if we run out of time, they are here. They're not going anywhere. We are going to mingle, and you can actually call them privately and try and see how you can get involved and what actions you can take on your individual sort of area wherever you come from. Thank you. And maybe to start off with the first question to my panelists, I'll start with Professor Gottfried Nomwe. And how can Namibia strengthen capability and capacity building initiatives in order to support local participation in this emerging industry? And what do you see as NAST contribution in this realm?
Thank you very much, Simon. This is a very interesting question. As Niels was presenting the process flow sheet of the Linus processing plant in Australia, I recalled that I was one of the panel or a team that toured that plant, that specific plant, in March this year. So it rang a bell in what Namibia could do. And I derived warmth from the fact that NAST has already introduced postgraduate specializations in hydrometallurgy, the very key specialization that is required for processing of rare earths. Of course, it's a multidisciplinary industry, but which actually requires quite a lot of infrastructure, as the Director General mentioned, but we were also of the support that the government will give to provide this infrastructure. But that infrastructure will not work without the skills. And what we have done, if you look at in NAST, for instance, there is the Faculty of Engineering and the Built Environment, where different engineering skills have been built. There is the chemical engineering, there is metallurgical engineering, there is mining engineering, there is mechanical engineering, there is electrical engineering, industrial engineering. All those form a base which interacts to provide this enabling environment. And this OMBU project, which Mr. Mungunda and team are producing, working on, it provides our students with an opportunity for industrial experience, work integrated learning. And I believe that most of them who are sitting here, especially the metallurgical ones, they could follow those process flow sheets quite well, which gave us some pride that we are going in the right direction, and Namibia will be in a position to take this challenge head on and probably share it with the region. I believe in a nutshell, that's what we...
Professor, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Maybe to just follow up that question, and to you, Mrs. Foibe, the rare earths, we've heard that they're not that rare in abundance, but the rarity really comes in the processing part of it, in just the separation of those elements to make sure that they stand alone and we tap into those qualities and quantities that we need for the industrialization going forward. What do you think is the role of universities and students? What can they play in this area to make sure that the rare earths are not as rare as we have them today?
Thank you very much for the question. Good evening. I'm very much interested in this question because not long ago, I was just coming from the university, which is very much a research university, and there I was able actually to observe what they are doing in terms of rare earth elements. So this gives me, I think, a good opportunity to share. the first thing that I think of when I'm looking at the university, a university is a center of research and innovation. That's the first thing. So universities can play a role in making sure that the technology in these projects is correct by doing research and using the innovation idea or innovation that can be used in these projects. And then the second one I can think of is coming from that university, it tells me that we cannot work solely as researchers. So we need collaboration. And in doing so, where others have a certain expertise, we can tap from that. And also in terms of knowledge, where they also have been working in this element or in this field already, we can also get that expertise or that knowledge, experience that they have, that we will not waste more time doing what cannot work. But from their experience, they can, we can at least learn what can be done easily or what cannot be done. And then the other thing that I want to think of is looking at the students, the skills development. So the university also works as a training center for the skills that is needed. I think, I'm not sure who said this already, but we're talking of the local, the Namibian skills that we need. So the universities can start from their own localities and then develop the skills that are required. And it is through this kind of collaborations that we can also, where we need more, let's say, education or training that we don't have at one of our universities, let me say local universities, we can get be in a collaboration with another university where we can either center our students or bring in the lecturers or the educators to bring on board such kind of training. And then the last one I think I want to talk on before I hand over the mic is in terms of the mining ecosystem. I think Prof. Genoma already spoke on that we don't only need one type of engineers like metallurgists or hydrometallurgists, so to say, like we have seen already that this is a process that is mainly metallurgical, but other infrastructures in the mining industry require other kinds or other fields, like he has already said, mechanical, electrical, in order for the mining or for the processing to actually be successful. So we need to look at that as well. So the universities will be able to train up these other areas of engineers or fields of engineers that will also be able to contribute to this project. Thank you.
Thank you for that response. And basically what we keep coming back to in terms of capacity development is skills. And as Mr. Mungunda earlier on has alluded on, that this kind of project is actually just an ignition point for a really multifaceted sort of approach to things in terms of multidisciplinary approach, and then universities, as you can hear, really putting up together a curriculum that talks back to what the industry requires and making sure that the skills are matched to what the industry is really sort of putting out there. Moving on to Mr. Mungunda, talking to the G.R.E.E.M initiative, how does G.R.E.E.M really sort of see playing that role of connecting finance, technology, policy and local entrepreneurship to ensure that Namibia really captures this emerging industry and making sure that it's for the benefit of everyone?
Thank you very much. I would just like to start off with maybe just highlighting the significant potential from an economic perspective that lies if we can master the technologies. And I'm seeing Niels Verbrand on the screen here, and I think what he was really illustrating to us is how complex I think the professor is saying this, whatever engineering, but my understanding is that this is a different type of engineering technology that is not common as yet. And if we can just, I think as a country, can just be ahead in terms of mastering these technologies, we will really be able to go far. And if you look at the deposits that are in a country, we really have a huge opportunity if we can be the first to, first of all, get a plant and a demonstration plan that can be scaled and will be able to be applied to the deposits that we have in the country. So the potential is really, really huge from an economic, socio perspective. So that's one. I think the second one is that what will then need to happen is that we need to be able to blend the right type of capital in order to scale this. To scale this and have more processing plants will require capital, but the capital has to be blended in terms of patient capital and also private capital as well. And I think this is where the public-private partnership really becomes important. And as we have seen with, we need to see de-risking capital coming in. We have seen, what has come through from the A2D facility, but we need actually more of this at a larger scale. And that is also going to be important. And I think the third one is, I can't emphasize this enough, is the need to build in green technologies in the processing of rare earth as we go ahead. We need to build it in from the start. We need to make sure that we also scale that across all new plants that will be coming in the country. And that will be able to really make sure that we position Namibia and our rare earth and critical minerals as green. So you don't want to be producing minerals that are imperative to the green energy transition, but you process them not in so much a green process, in a green process. So we need to make sure that these minerals that are critical to the energy transition are also are processed using green technologies. And we need to build it in from the start as a country, and we need to make sure that we use this to differentiate. And then the last one is, in order to really make sure that there is local capture of the value of these value chains, it is important that we scale the skills in terms of all the participants that could participate in this value chain. And that's why, capacity building, information dissemination becomes very, very important. Is we need to be able to, we need to make sure that we understand the value chains, and our people and the country will be able to have the knowledge and the skills to participate meaningfully and competitively across the value chain so that you can capture more and more of the value.
Thank you, Mr. Mungunda. Takeaway from that is basically, I think, critical is what he's putting in the room is you greening the process that actually enables you to transition to clean energy. So as clean as the product should be, so should the value chain and the supply chain that fits it. And that's very critical, and that requires that innovative way of thinking, an innovative way of doing things going forward. Thank you for that. And I'll move on to the UNITO team, maybe starting off with Rada. Rada, you did touch on that as part of your presentation earlier, the rationale behind UNITO really choosing the critical minerals area and the demonstration projects in that. What was the thinking around it?
Yeah, thank you, Simon, for the question. Actually, critical minerals are essential for green industrialization across various sectors, transport, power, industry, and also for building sectors. And also it is important for diversifying the global supply chain for clean energy technologies. So it is essential and important to be supported by UNIDO and the A2D facility. And as presented, that around 35% of emission reduction necessary for achieving climate goals related to demonstration projects that are still in earlier stage or pilot demonstration project or demonstration phase. And also the global supply chain, also the global demand for critical mineral will be doubled by 2030, and the extraction of critical mineral will be increased by 2030 according to UNIDO and the World Bank. And actually we are supporting activities that focus on downstream and midstream activities related to processing, refining and recycling of critical minerals. So we are supporting circular economy. And regarding challenges, so we are also committed to support the demonstration projects that find solution to developing countries to overcome their challenges related to availability of critical mineral, the increased demand on critical minerals, and also the needed supply or supply for critical mineral. So these are the rationales or the reason for supporting this important thematic area.
Thank you very much for that, Agata. And the theme continues. The golden thread, as you can hear, continues. Agata is going on about really the critical minerals, the need thereof, innovative technologies required, needing that seed capital where traditional banking, traditional funders may not be comfortable to put the money in. And that's where UNITO will come in to make sure that it catalyzes that and make sure that it makes it now more investable for the traditional funding to come through. And then talking about funding, moving on to Peter, financing mechanisms. What does UNITO, how does UNITO and the A2D facility see that playing out between moving from demonstration projects, scaling up, and making sure that the necessary funds are coming through to make sure that this becomes a reality?
Thank you for the question.
You can use mine.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you for the question. And I guess before I answer, just to say we fully agree with the panel on two of the key points and that have been raised. So one on the longer term skills development and the role of universities within that locally, absolutely essential, and that's the sort of thing that we want to see in the projects that we support. And then secondly, on the importance of green industrialization, and it's about greening the process, because we're not going to provide grants to a critical minerals processing plant that is fueled by diesel generators or coal plants. So it's fundamentally the whole process needs to be decarbonized. On financing, I mean, with the demonstration phase, we have found that's one of the most challenging phases of the value chain to finance. Obviously, it can't all come from grants because it's for two reasons. One is incredibly capital intensive, and in this landscape now, of course, reduced official development assistance and reduced aid money globally, we need to make less grants go further. And secondly, I think it's also the point that if it's fully, the more grant that's in a project, arguably the less commercial it might be. So it's trying to see how can you use grants to actually de-risk private finance to come in. So that's why demonstration is fundamental, but also very challenging. What we've seen across our portfolio, and just looking at the evidence that we've had, is equity investments have probably been the dominant. We're not seeing much from sort of loans or concessional loans from the banks. Some local banks are getting involved, which is great. International banks, not so much. So we're seeing mainly from equity. We're also seeing some impact investors also being quite interested in this space as well. Philanthropies, this varies a lot, the willingness of philanthropies to come into this. But even if you look at the MDBs, I mean, if you talk to the private sector operations arms of the MDBs, of like the IFC and the World Bank, so not the technical side, but the pure banking side, as I would call it, very hesitant to come into this space. And that's why I think they're there to really come in once we've done the demonstration, once we've proven it works with combination of equity, capital, grants to de-risk. that's when they will come in to then sort of get to the second, third, fourth, fifth projects at the scale that was mentioned as well. The other thing is what we can do with grants, like looking at grants in more creative ways as well. So of course, giving a grant is important, but you know, the ideas of using grants for things like performance guarantees. You know, we often hear from projects in our portfolio about the importance of guarantee models and actually or insurance products for the equipment, first loss financial products, which is something that grants could be used in a creative way to support. Also returnable grants as well that can then be reinvested into more projects to sustain the facilities like this that support. And then finally, the third of creativity, I'd say, in grants is how can you build the demand using grants? And this is a point I always like to emphasize a lot. It's not just about the supply of, for example, producing the minerals in this case, but how do we create the demand for the minerals that have been processed by projects like Umbo Capital's project? Because without that demand, then that fundamentally affects the commercial viability. So can we use grants for things like advanced market commitments, for green public procurement approaches, for creative forms of results-based financing, or you know, contracts for difference? Actually, that last one was mentioned briefly in one of the presentations. So how can we use grants in that way as well? But maybe I'll pause there.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much. Maybe on a lighter note, there is a meme that runs around. I think it's a Ugandan Minister of Finance. He always had that term, the money is here. Money is coming. I don't know what criteria he used to actually now go, money is coming, money is here, and money is everywhere. But thank you for that. And I think that's what's required, is really more a blended way of basically putting money together to make sure that these projects really move from one stage to another. I just quickly want to check. I think everybody must be hungry by now. And I want to check, Niels, are you online?
Yes, I'm online.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. And if you can hear me, a quick question to you before I open up maybe for one or two questions to the audience. With your experience, I think there is a saying that says wisdom comes from learning from your mistakes. And imagine if we all just make the mistakes we need to get the wisdom, where we're going to end up. So from your experience and from your background, what can you sort of caution, and what opportunities do you see Namibia can actually sort of latch on to make sure that we get out of the blocks, we sort of hit the metal while it's hot on this emerging market in terms of processing rare earths?
Yeah, let me try and unpack that. Good question, thank you. When we talk about opportunities, I think we should talk about barriers as well. So maybe I'll start with the barriers here. And we talk about barriers from moving further beyond rare mining and maybe beneficiation, and the making of a concentrate. How can we move further than that and maybe make a mixed rare carbonate or a separated product? So let's talk a little bit about barriers there. And there, the mineralogy needs to cooperate a bit. So what's in the ground, it kind of needs to help you along a little bit. And if the mineralogy is really complex, well, maybe we need to leave it in the ground. So those projects that make a decent mineral concentrate, and a decent, think, I don't know, more than 50 or more than 40% or so, they should be able to advance into the production of an MREC, which is the mixed rare carbonate, possibly even move further. So just but it's a bit more nuanced than that. So we're talking about light rare projects such as Doctor and others. That explanation really applies. I do not see a light rare project that cannot make a good concentrate advance much further, because these projects are going to compete with the likes of Lynas, Mountain Pass, maybe the Cheetah Lake in Canada, and they won't be able to compete because low-grade concentrates or whole treatment will lead to excessive reagent consumption. It just won't work economically. Heavy rare projects are a bit more unique, and they can handle, I think, and lower grade concentrate. So things can look technically, sure, I can extract large minerals from a ore using lots of reagents, but when it's technically feasible doesn't mean it's economically feasible, and that's the right thing to do. So those are some of the technical barriers that I see. If we must switch to opportunities, Namibia has a really strong background in hydrometallurgy, and I heard one of the other panel members say something along the lines of, well, maybe we need to focus more on this special type of engineering. I think it already takes place in Namibia, if I'm not mistaken. Right? There's a strong background here in uranium hydrometallurgy. I think the Scorpion project is going through maybe a restart, I was reading. That too is a hydrometallurgy using lots of the techniques that will be used in rare earth processing. So I think the opportunity is unique in Namibia with the ability, with the presence of good resources. Some of these make good concentrates. There are light rare earth resources, there are heavy rare earth resources. So there are some really unique opportunities there. I heard other speakers talk about the talent barrier. And one of my other hats that I carry is I sit on the board of the Metallurgical Society here in Canada, where my role is to promote students who choose a career in metallurgy. And at the moment, and maybe it's because of the geopolitical situation, particularly in Canada, with our southern neighbor, there is lots of attention into mining programs. So we've seen an increased enrollment in mining programs. What we do not see, however, is an increased enrollment into the processing aspects. So this is mineral processing, extractive metallurgy, hydrometallurgy, and many others. So promoting that industry, I think, is really really important. And finally, my third hat as a father, I have two sons in mining. They both went through a mining program. These programs are increasing in size. Probably more than 90% within that program are going into the actual mining aspects, and maybe only a minority into the processing side. So that's, I think, is not sure what the local situation is in Namibia there, but whatever you can do to promote this as a good industry, as an industry where there's a good career to be had. It's probably quite important. Okay, I think I've spoken long enough. I think I had a long presentation also already, and clearly my voice is not cooperating. Happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Niels, for that. And please stand by for, in case the public or the audience here would want to put a question through to you. But yes, maybe take away from that, as you heard, is just basically be wary of those pitfalls where you have misaligned sort of curriculum, misaligned strategy in terms of which minerals to actually chase and all that. So, and then also what comes through there is the opportunities that we have as a country, strong metallurgical, hydrometallurgical processes. So we have to make sure that we learn from those. We're not reinventing the wheel in some of these areas. So they are there. And also a good share of world-class deposits that we're boasting with. That's a great opportunity as well coming with this. With that, I will open just a small window for the audience to actually pose questions to our panelists here. Of course, with that in mind, that what can we do to make sure that we take this country forward, we get out of the blocks first and realize that value. I was not asking for the hands up yet, but your hand was up. So let's go for it. Let's go for it. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Daniel Enyo. I'm a mining engineer from the Department of Civil Mining and Processing Engineering. Mine is going to be a comment rather than a question, and maybe I will add a request to it. Okay, so I've been following up with the project, today with the speakers, and it's been very, very insightful. Personally, for me, as someone who has interest in REEs, even though I'm a mining engineer, but I've grown to have interest in processing, especially because we know mining has a lot of impacts. And with these new technologies that we are bringing on board, it is our hope that these processing aspects will reduce the impacts on the environment. So that's why I'm impressed and happy with the 2 dimensions that we have spoken about. The first one is on decarbonization, which is a global problem now, how to reduce the impact on our environment. And the second aspect is the domestic angle now, having roles to play in the supply chain for us in Namibia and then for the entire region, because we've always been, taking out primary commodities. No value had been added, but now we are going to have significant roles in value chain of these mineral commodities, of course, and it will plow back Forex for us. So those 2 areas are keen for me. So the request I just want to make is, number 1, I noticed there's been little discussion on water, and that's why I'm happy about the discussion of our online speaker. That's one area that I would look also to perhaps speak about in subsequent, and that's why I'm happy that this is going to be a series. So there may be aspects that we might not have touched today that we'll touch in. So since we want to reduce the impact on the environment, and we are using a lot of hydrometallurgy, so maybe we'll look at how to reduce impact on wastewater treatment and those aspects. And then the second thing is to say I'm looking forward to future editions of this series. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Daniels. Please stick around, stay with us, and we'll share more.
Thank you.
Thank you. So it helps to get out of the blocks first, because you dictate what you say, you dictate what you do. And I think for the country as well, that's what we have to think about, to make sure that we actually spring. And I see there's a question, comment there by you. If you can just maybe follow suit, just introduce yourself briefly, and then either a question or a comment. It was him first. And then we're going to take one more.
Good evening. I have 2 questions, actually. The first question is the simplest. It goes to Mr. Mungunda. I just want to know the statistics when it comes to capacity building. How many people do we intend to employ? That's what I think we are looking at. And since we partner with NAST, how many of those engineers we want to send to NAST for training? I think let's have some statistics to that. And I think the second question is, I think before I ask the question, I just have to acknowledge what the Director General have said earlier on, that the industrial nations sometimes they tend to force us to use green energy, which they did not use in the past to develop their industries. And these tend to be very expensive. So on that basis, I just want to ask a question now in terms of the Ondoto project itself. We say this is a green project. And at what level does it become green? Because when you do the mining activity itself, there is a serious environmental degradation, if you like. Is it becoming green because we are using the final product for the EVs and the wind turbines?
One can do you do that as low carbon or as green as possible. And that's what we are designing into the processing, is to make sure that it is as green as possible in terms of the energy use, in terms of the environmental impact. We already are in a process of an environmental, so one can't talk to the specifics on environmental impact studies that are happening, as well as also the gender equality and social inclusiveness. So also independent studies that are being undertaken to make sure that what the project will be able to do will be as environmentally green as possible, but also as socially inclusive as possible. So this is not only just independent studies, but also plans that will come out of that. Just to also give you some examples of what is being already being designed. And that's why I think we couldn't commit to the Director General in terms of launch, is that there's still some work that has to be done based on some of these studies in terms of the specific designs. But as we said, we know some of the waste, for example, will be turned into fertilizer, the nitrate waste as an example. We're also looking at turning some of the waste into the making of bricks, for example. And this is to create circular economies and to reduce the waste that will come out of any of this process. And this is really all that commitment to, when we say that we want to see the designing of green technologies into processing, it's actually at the core of this project. It is not just any other processing, it is a green processing. Then on a question from my friend from many years ago when we were younger, Ivan Lombard, we were both very active in student politics when we were younger. I really appreciate, and we really appreciate what your comment that you're making in terms of, generally when you see development coming where communities live, it is possible that there will be conflict. Now, I think as a country, we also need to appreciate, and I've always made this comment in the discussions and dialogues with respect to development is, obviously, when you bring development, there is a need to make sure that you engage with the communities. There is an alignment with respect to an understanding of what needs to be done, the impact, and also how the community will be included. And that's why, what we are talking about in terms of our social inclusiveness, it is specifically a process to make sure that the project takes into account the need to include the communities. And it is important. But those conversations will need to happen. Generally, in our country, is in our communal area. Sorry, I don't know what's it. Yeah. So general. Okay. So generally. Hello. Okay. Hello. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I think we're good.
Yeah. Good to go.
Hello? Hello? Okay. So generally what you find in our country is that there are no industrial development in communal areas. And we need to ask the question as to why. But the challenge comes partly because in communal areas, firstly, you have generally a challenge with the security of tenure with respect to private capital coming into a specific area. But the other challenge is also that we do understand that it is quite complicated to engage with communities in communal settings. So we do appreciate that, and that obviously requires a conscious, intentional undertaking from the project promoters to not only engage with the communities, but to make sure that they are part of the aspirations